Spread this one.
Blue play.
I use one back. I move it back. This is just random Shrek of Spoil, okay? Okay.
The long-lost feel-good Shrek animation test has recently been found, and it made the internet go mad. So let's talk about it. But first, I think a bit of context is needed. Before we begin, this is going to be slightly different from the other Shrek videos, and my particular format in videos in general. I usually take an unopinionated documentary approach, with my videos more or less being about delivering the facts, and straying away from any of my own personal thoughts, allowing the viewer to come to their own opinion if the missing media was indeed any good. Besides, I think it's a little bit unfair to review something that you haven't really seen, and a lot of you are probably more interested in the facts of the lost projects, rather than my own personal relationship with them. Attenborough has always gone by this motto which I've associated with my own videos, that in his own programs, the animals are the true stars, and it's important as the presenter to not take over. But for my third update video about the lost Chris Farley version of Shrek, I think I've kind of gone off everything that's publicly available about the behind-the-scenes drama of the production, and while I'm sure there's far more to tell, we haven't got any of that new info here today, but we finally do have snippets and clips. So this time round, in a Supersonic Q or Super Reviewer style, this is going to be a little bit more of a self-evaluation of how far we've come, and having some fun of looking at the new material that we've now got. If you're a new viewer, I would advise to at least check out the last Shrek update video, just to aid to give you a bit of context on what we previously knew about the production. Oh, and if you like what you see, subscribing would be very much appreciated. Alright, let's divulge into things. On the 30th of July of 2022, user of the Lost Media Wiki, Dingle Manboy, located a Vimeo account that belonged to a former DreamWorks employee that worked for the company between 96 and 98. He had uploaded a show reel where the first several seconds displays several sped-up animations that he was involved with. Taking a look at the one on the far left, it is the Chris Farley test footage. Now, while it's not necessarily the final clip we've all been looking for, slowing the footage down and looking at it frame by frame, we can now precisely break down as to what shots are contained in the final test footage, currently giving us our best insight to what it is as a whole. And fairly soon an avalanche of rediscovered Chris Farley Shrek content had came to the limelight. My most well-known video content are my Shrek documentaries. I received quite a number of DMs on my social media accounts regarding about the lost Chris Farley version, and I do humbly appreciate on viewers keeping me up to date on the search. But on August 2nd, a Twitter user by the name of Maximo sent me a private message saying that they had found something. The thumbnail didn't look particularly interesting, so I was just expecting it to be just a random fodder. But to my surprise, what Maximo had found was a show reel that contained this. 4 seconds of the Chris Farley test animation. To say if I was excited would be an understatement. I was generally ecstatic of what I was seeing. At the time, the video was only at roughly 70 views. 2 thumbs up, counting myself. It was so surreal to even think that I was only part of a small number of people that had even saw this clip outside of DreamWorks from the 90s. And it had been on YouTube all the way back in 2010. So all this time that we've been looking for it, it's just been hiding right back here in the background. But hey, with a really random code title, I don't blame anybody for not finding it anytime sooner. I mean, it's on the equivalent of finding a needle in the haystack. I really wanted to share Maximo's discovery for everybody to see. But during this time, I was in contact with one of the search members of the LMW, where at the time they asked me not to make any post or comment on the recent Chris Farley revelations, because they were part of a group that were trying to contact the original animator, and feared that too much attention drawn to the search may lead to an excess amount of people contacting the animator, and you don't really want to overwhelm somebody handing over a missing piece of media. I did tell them about Maximo's findings, but I knew it was best just to sit back and wait and see what happens. And hey, it was the perfect time for me to relax as I was going on a cruise, heading off to Norway if any of you were curious. But I prepared a small little YouTube short, just giving a quick update on what Maximo had found. I was planning to post it if there was anything that was ever discovered while I was away, and that's exactly what happened. Reddit user Hotakula, in association with their mate Accomplished World 823, were able to locate not only the previous mugger shots, but had found another showreel with additional footage. This showreel shared the same shot of Shrek smiling, but it goes on for an extra few frames. But the new stuff was a clip of Shrek dancing. Out of the roughly 10 seconds of the Chris Farley test footage that has been rediscovered, the dance shot is the longest by far, contributing about 5 seconds. So let's now do a breakdown of what we have. Prior to the clips uncovering, we knew that the test animation was about 45 seconds long. YouTube user Uncle Sporksums did a recreation of the feel-good test, but directly sourced from the original script and storyboards, or at least what was partially available. That ran for about 2 minutes and 23 seconds long. I made the speculative guess that the test animation was only more loosely based on what was initially scripted, and now that we've got enough resources to piece together the timeline of what happens in the test, I think that might very well still be the case. The moments that appear to be missing from the Uncle Sporksums recreation is the mugger making no shy comments about Shrek's mum, leading to the ogre getting rather defensive. Now there's a chance that it might be still there in some small capacity, as for a few seconds we've got Shrek looking really angry, but the 2 previous shots before Shrek's anger turns into an unnervingly...
Oh my god.
Previous shots before Shrek's anger turns into an unnervingly smile is one where he's laughing, and then the second previous is where he's got the mugger by his throat. The next time that we see the mugger within the rough timeline that we've conjured up is where he's flinged into the air. From what we can see, there doesn't appear to be enough pause for the mugger to throw in some kind of insult to Shrek. As well as Shrek's ability to breathe fire is not here as well. But hey, we still haven't got the full thing yet, so you never know. Now, according to the VHS listing on WorthPoint, that the test concludes by seeing some behind-the-scenes facial rigging, and in the sped-up showreel version, we do get the luxury to see the unrendered models. Although a small behind-the-scenes clip that doesn't appear to be here is that WorthPoint describes on seeing a session of the Fat Capture harness, the motion capture suit for Shrek. That's still completely absent in this showreel, so that's still something to find. 2 of the most exciting things of this uncovery is that, number 1, we finally have a good look at the rendered mugger, but the second most significant thing is that we finally have moving footage of the test. A step closer to have a taste of the flavour on what the original Chris Farley Shrek could have looked like. Now, of course, we're all very familiar with the final Mike Myers Shrek that ended up in theatres, so I think there's always going to be a little bit of bias on how we personally envision Shrek. I've certainly seen a lot of comments referring to this Chris Farley version looking extremely creepy, especially in movement. And yeah, I certainly wouldn't disagree that this rendition of Shrek doesn't exactly look the most humbling rendition of the character. But trying to look at it from the middle, we've only ever seen the CGI render model of Shrek when he's meant to look rather intimidating. I mean, maybe we may very well have the same opinion of the Mike Myers Shrek if we only ever saw images from that rendition of the character looking rather creepy himself. So maybe if we saw another angle of the design, in a more sincere and sweet moment, then it may very well help us to give us a better idea on how the character design could work for a full feature film. But in saying that, the proportions of the mugger model, who I'm presuming is meant to be a human, has a very stylized look. Pointy nose and ears, overblown eyeballs. I kind of wonder if the other humans envisioned for the movie were going to have some kind of oddball design. I took a look again at some of the leaked concept art we've got of this version of Shrek. With the exception of the look from Fiona, Donkey and the other characters have wackedly weird proportions to their design, unlike the final movie where they're not as nearly as cartoonish. But putting aside if the cast would have looked all that flattering, let's look to see on how the models move. I've mentioned quite a number of times now on how they utilised motion capture technology to bring to life the performance, but they also did some frame-by-frame CGI animation in the more subtle details such as facial expression and minor limb movements such as fingers. At least as far as I can tell, there didn't appear to be too many motion capture shots. The last shot of Shrek doing his dance seems very likely to be a mocap shot, but all the animation styles blend quite well with each other. As unflattering as the mugger may look, I will definitely applaud the execution of the squash and stretch animation. In fact, it may very well be one of the most early examples of CGI animation achieving something so wacky and cartoony. From the brief snippets we've got, there was nothing particularly uncanny about any of it. Excitingly, the same guy that was able to locate the first sped-up showreel, Dingle Manboy, had stumbled upon another animated showreel, which displays another early CGI render of Shrek, dated to be made in 1998, a year after Chris Farley's passing. Very shortly afterwards, YouTube user Quandale uploaded a full clip of one of these test animations, and it actually contains some never-before-heard Chris Farley audio.
No, I'm an ogre! You know,
What?
grab your torch and pitchforks! Doesn't that bother you at all?
My
Nope.
God.
Really?
No.
Really?
Where are you guys?
Suit yourself.
While it might not be the full feel-good test that we've all been searching for, at least now we've got a completely full animation test in our hands.
Oh my God.
And we've additionally had some early donkey audio that's resurfaced.
Oh my God. Yeah,
I'm free! I'm free! I can't believe it! Thank you so much. You don't know what you've done for me.
The CGI
What
model of the
did?
horse is not an early
Why
rendition of
Donkey?
Donkey. According
Oh
to
my
the
God,
animator's
what's
website that this was
Donkey?
sourced from, it's an early CGI asset from the later DreamWorks 2D movie Spirit. But the voice is definitely from Donkey and an earlier version of Shrek. Just place that as a
Donkey?
rough audio track.
When
Now,
Donkey
will we
was
ever find the feel-good
Donkey.
test in its entirety? Or uncover anything more? Well, your guess is as good as mine, I'm afraid. But hey, you can never
Okay,
predict on what can be
coffee.
around the corner. For now, let's applaud on the tantalizing glimpse that we have.
Bye guys, subscribe my channel.